Hey there, it's Mully down in my sound lab. You can see I got a little facelift, and I got to bring out some extra things that I've had in storage for a while. So that's kind of cool, I think. But today I decided to go over a neat, really cool vintage effect that I think you're going to like today. It is it's about 20 years old. It was developed around 2000. It is the Alesis AirFX. We're going to have to insert some beautiful product sweeps at some point here. The Alesis AirFX is a theremin-like effect that it does a whole bunch of different stuff. There's special effects, flanges, phases, distortions, synthesized effects, things that the box itself actually generates, and you don't need any sound to create it. One thing I will say is that it does use 9 volts AC, like a lot of older Alesis products. So one thing I did was take like a little bit of white paint, and I painted some stripes on the outlet because it will fit into a stomp box, and you really don't want to do that. You'll have a bad day if you plug the AC into a stomp box. So now, without further ado, let's plug it in, and we can go over a couple preliminary things. I'll have to put in a card for where the sounds start if you're eager to get to the sounds real quick, which, you know, I don't blame you. I'm going to be demonstrating this today with the Volca keys. A lot of us know what that sounds like. It's a pretty straight ahead synthesizer. The Volca keys go into the AirFX, then they go into Yamaha mixer. They're sent to a compressor, Behringer Autocomp, I think it is, Composer Pro, and then it goes to a lovely old iPhone speaker. That's what I'm using down here. One thing they learned in the 90s, I have this art unit here, and it has like 255 presets, and if you lose the preset paper, which, oh, here it is. If you lose this thing, you're gonna not really know what they are. So they got smart in the 2000s, and they actually printed on the bottom of this all of the sample or all of the patches, or not patches, but effects, what they all are. There's also a bushing for a mic stand, so you can put this on a mic stand. That's pretty cool. I don't know how efficient it would be to have to refer to this in the middle of a performance or recording or whatever, so I highly recommend you go online and print it out. That way you can also make notes about what you like. Ideally, if you were going to like take it to a gig or something, you probably want some blue tape with some numbers of things you like. If you use it enough, you'll get some of the idea, but there's 50 of them. It goes from 0 to 49, which is also really convenient. So without further ado, let's listen to the dry signal real quick from the Volca keys. There's not a whole lot of filter or anything on it, just because I wanted a dry sound, because there are filters on here we'll be listening to. I know, a little boring, just a little arpeggio that I put up with the key step here. The first effect that we have is called the pitch out. I will warn you also, what the effects are called is not always what they actually are. We'll get to that with the phasers, or some of the phase stuff. And I'm not going to go over every single patch, just some of maybe the more useful ones. Some of them are a little like, why would anybody do that? But you know. So here we go. The first one is called pitch out, and that basically lowers the pitch and then mutes it. And this one doesn't have any X, Y, or Z. See, this is an infrared sensor. That's why it's not exactly like a theremin. A theremin measures, I believe, capacitance in an electric field, I think. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. This measures infrared. So basically your hand gives off heat. It's basically a hot blob. And this determines how big the blob is and whether it's left or right, front or back. So the pitch out doesn't do that. It's just they call it the Z-axis, up or down. Lord of the Flies is pretty terrible. Vinylizer could be kind of useful, and I think this is one that's somewhat misnamed. I think this is almost more of an old radio sound, but I think this would be useful in like maybe ending a track. And that's one of the synthesized ones, because that one, you can play it without anything there. So it filters it and then adds the crackle. The percolator, that one's kind of cool. It's number 3. You use the dial to select the number, then you push it, and it selects that. If you go to the number and you don't push it, you're still on the previous one, so that can be kind of weird. There's a little period that's there if you're not actually in the effect that you've got in the window. It's kind of weird, but it does work. So this is the percolator. If you find an effect that you like and you want to keep it, you'll hold the button and you can remove your hand. You can also do this without your hand over top of it, and it'll kind of mute the effect or render it ineffective. So then you could while it sounds synthesized, that one does actually need the sound going through it. Frankenstein's Lab, that's a synthesized one. That's number 4. Sounds like some Steve Miller Band stuff or something. Kind of like it. Number 5's an Overdrive. I don't like that one. Number 6 is Kenneth's Frequency, referencing what's the frequency, Kenneth, maybe? And see, I think this is also a good point, that you really do have to kind of read the manual and learn how it operates, because if you just take your hand and do this on all the effects, you're definitely not getting the most out of the box that you could get, I think. So definitely you got to play around with it, kind of practice with it, and that's how you get the most out of it. I think that's how it's kind of like the coolest. How it was designed to be used. Let's see. Decimator number 8 is a digital distortion, which sounds really weird. I think it sounds better on bass than that almost sounds like a bit crusher. Digital, they had really artistic descriptions of it. This one says digital distortion that sounds like you're chewing on sand. That was Sunspot. I'm not a super big fan of Sunspot. I like Decimator better. Number 10, Telephone. That's a pretty useful one. I think I've seen people mention this one before. It's a bandpass filter, so it makes it sound like you're running the synth through a telephone. Now the next one, Big Bottom. I like this one, and the description is a 6-pole low-pass filter, perfect for synths and basses. But this one is also why it's hooked up to a compressor. You'll see, like over here, there's red dots. The red LEDs are when it's actually lowering the volume coming in. It's compressing it. And over here we have the peak, because I also have a limiter set in for limiter clipping, or limit clipping, and or limiting, not limit clipping. Limiting is just infinite compression beyond a certain point. Anyways, and this is kind of what makes me think this is probably not the best thing for live shows, really, to a certain extent, because some of these effects can really crank up the volume. And this is one of them. I'm not sure if it's the resonance, what's got to be the resonance, or feedback, or something of this effect. You can get some pretty wild volume changes that if you were playing through an actual PA in a sort of dance setting, or club setting, you could hurt equipment, you could hurt your audience. It gets that drastic. Let's start the loop again, and I'll show you guys. Okay, so down here, we're just lighting up the first couple bars, and we have the compressor kicking on a little bit every once in a while. And you can see that compressor is definitely lighting up. And I've hit the peak on it, or hit the limiter a couple times with it too. That's the part right there. It makes you worried, but so I think that one's pretty cool. Big Bottom, or not Big Bottom, Bow Wow also can do a similar sort of thing to the volume. And that's really like a wub maker. And then there's Smoke, which is the same thing, but with a high-pass filter. There's an auto-wah setting, which I'm not super fan of, but this one's called Fomented. It's kind of like it says, sounds like music coming out of someone's mouth. Great on full mix. Kind of adds a sort of vocalization to it. Next, another one that's all right is Orly filter. Beat synced random filter, keeps in time with the music. It's number 18. Those are the filters. Next up, we move into the flange phase section. The first one, number 20, Tokyo phase. That one sounds pretty good. I'm also a fan of the liquid metal, which is number 22. That one's getting the compressor going too. There's one in here called Psycho Phase. Oh, that is a phaser. There's one called Phased Out, which is actually a flanger. That's why I say you got to kind of be careful. Some of these don't always line up with what they're supposed to be. Liquid Metal says it's a 25 band phase shifter for amazing metallic stereo effects. There's also panners on here. I only run it out of that one little speaker, so the panning's not really going to do much for us. And I'm recording on an iPhone, so I don't know if that's stereo. I don't think it would matter. Either way, we're going to skip the panners. Satellite's kind of cool. And this is the phased out one I was talking about. And that's a kind of overview of the phasers and flanger section. Next, I think we have more special effects. The first bank was special effects. There's a second bank of special effects. Strobe gate's kind of cool. That's kind of like a stutter effect. And right next to it is what they call nervous, number 31, which is a tremolo. They have a Freak It pitch shifter. Oop. The next pitch transposer is called Gender Bender. That name hasn't necessarily aged well. This is another pitch transposer, and this one gives you up or down 4 steps. So this is another pitch transposer that goes up or down 4 steps. The next one, Waterbed, that one's kind of cool. This is a vibrato. There's also a rotating speaker effect called Spin the Bottle. It actually sounds more like a doubler to me. Another rotating speaker. And those are probably the best of the special effects. Then finally we have synth patches. There was actually a sister to this called the Synth that came out, I think it was in 2001. At that time, Alesis went through a bankruptcy, and they focused on changing a lot of their product line, and these guys went by the wayside. So they weren't made very long. And that is why they are somewhat rare. Even still, I think, and even though they're 20 years old, I think they're actually pretty cool for what they are. The first synthesized patch I'm going to go over is the scratch patch. This is the one everybody really likes. What this does is it synthesizes a scratch music, and it actually mutes the sound coming in. It doesn't buffer it and stop it or anything. It just mutes it. So you can hear it without the sample going, but you can play the sample. If you have a sequencer that has a play pause, you can kind of hit the play pause and then hit it again and pick up where you left off instead of the sample or the Volca keys just goes back to the beginning. So if you have that play pause like on a key step, you can kind of use the two to create something that's kind of cooler. So the scratch one, it's kind of cool. I mean, I got to admit, I kind of like it. It's a little cheesy, so what? Let's see, Haunted Landscape number 43. That one's kind of like a wind gust or something. Number 45 is beatbox. This is another one where I think you really need the compressor. On the one side, you have a very loud bass drum. And I'm hitting the peak on that one. On the other side, you have a clap. It's not the most consistent. But you can do it. If you consider that some of the like analog effects that are a pad that you can hit or tap or whatever, like I think it's called like space drum or something like that, those go for hundreds of dollars. I got this. It was actually probably one of my first like pandemic buys, and it cost me around like 110. Lately I've seen them for closer to 150 on eBay, but that may be because it's Christmas time, things get a little bit more expensive on the eBay, or it may be that they're just going up in price. There kind of is nothing like this. So let's see what else. Slap synth is kind of interesting. Once again, that's hitting the peak, and we're definitely compressing that. It's pretty loud. Jungle rip, not sure exactly. Oh yeah. I know war is kind of dumb. Sci-Fi Theater is the last one, number 49, and this one sounds kind of cool. my guess is that that's kind of what the sister effect, or the sister product, the Air Synth, does. It's probably more along these lines. You'll have noticed there's no delay, there's no reverb on this, and I think that's kind of a shame. But still, for what you get this sort of contactless yet still somewhat performative effect that does flanges, phases, special effects, filters, all that, and you get it for, you know, $150. These were MSRP at $250 when they first came out. So I think it's a really pretty good deal. You get the clap, you have the scratch, which is really unique. I think the only thing that I've never actually used, but the only thing that I've seen that looks kind of similar to this would be like a Chaos Pad. Here's my thought, is that this would actually be a great effect to reboot. So Alesis, I don't know if you're listening. I know Behringer likes to go back and remake some things, for better or for worse. I'm not going to get into the politics of that one. But, you know, also even Zoom. I mean, they already have 2 ins, 2 outs, a bunch of time-based modulation effects. You could take out the switch, put in a little ball with some like you could put in like this sort of smoke-colored ball with a IR sensor in it. Hook those IR sensors into a couple parameters, and I mean, you could make it really small, you could make it the same size, but you could do so much more with it. Some of these effects, you know, they're not the best at what they are. Like, it's not the best phaser, it's not the best flanger. I think that some of the flangers are kind of weak, some of the phasers are kind of weird. And it, you know, like I said, the range kind of goes way out for some of them. But I think this could be redone. You could have a ton of effects on it these days. You could go into those reverbs, you could go into those delays, chorus, some of the things you don't really have with this one, and it would be super duper cool. So if somebody wants to remake this, I think you could offer it in a pretty small package at a pretty reasonable rate, similar to the multi-stomp probably, and I think people would like it, because I think one of the things where this also falls a little flat is that you have to be so close, like that's within 6 inches, you know. And if you want it to be more performative, you want to be able to have it a little more sensitive so that stuff out here happens more. So you can look more like, you know, the Grand Wizard, you know, making all of the music happen instead of like, is he actually touching that? You know, is that a big knob? What's he doing there? Also, one thing to note too, because it is infrared, it doesn't play well in direct sunlight. I read that it's not good for outside indirect sun sort of stuff. So that is the majority of the ins and outs on the AirFX. I really like this. I use it on, you know, some of the recordings I do, which I'll admit they're not that great. I'm still learning, you know, like Look Mum No Computer says, don't be afraid to try it. So, you know, I'm trying it. But this is one thing that really caught my eye back in the early 2000s. I think I saw it in like a audio magazine or guitar or something like that. And I saw it and I was like, wow, that is super cool. The future is now. I want one. And then I didn't get one until 20 years later for less than half the price. So, I don't know. All's well that ends well. I hope you really enjoyed me going over the Alesis AirFX. You learned some things about it. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. If you liked me going over the effects and some synthy stuff, definitely subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff, so that you can see more of it, because as you can see, I'm set up to do more synth, more guitar, got some pedals, just fixed that one actually, and more good stuff like that. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you liked it.